Did you understand once you're for the first time?
Thank you for joining us.
Those are the
This
best.
is an extraordinary and memorable day for us, for all of us. It is graduation day in terms of the hooding piece, and so that takes place this afternoon. It is our tradition to share the Take Wing Award with you on this day. The E. Gray Dimond MD Take Wing Award is the School of Medicine's annual honor, given to a graduate who has demonstrated excellence in his or her chosen field and exceeded the expectations of peers in the practice of medicine, academic medicine, or research. Personal achievement and community or public service are considered for the award, which is presented during graduation week. The Take Wing winner receives an engraved Take Wing statue cast from a small carving made in 1952 by the late E. Gray Dimond, MD, Provost Emeritus for the Health Sciences, from a piece of driftwood he found on the beach while visiting Carmel, California. His daughter, Lark, had the sculpture enlarged and cast in bronze. That sculpture stands in front of the UMKC School of Medicine, encouraging students and alumni to take wing and soar to new heights in their careers after they leave the school. It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce today's keynote speaker, Dr. Nelson Sabatez, today's Take Wing Award winner. At UMKC School of Medicine, one of the highest recognitions we bestow is the Take Wing Award. The award honors individuals whose lives and leadership have elevated this institution, expanded opportunity for others, and helped our students, faculty, and community aspire to greater heights. The symbolism is intentional. To take wing is to rise, to advance, to help others do the same. There are few individuals who embody that spirit more completely than my friend Dr. Nelson Sabatez. Dr. Sabatez is a distinguished ophthalmologist, internationally respected retinal surgeon, educator, researcher, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. A graduate of both the 6-year BA/MD program and the UMKC School of Medicine, he has devoted decades to advancing patient care, vision research, medical education, and civic leadership throughout Kansas City and beyond. Following residency training at the Dean McGee Eye Institute and fellowship training at Harvard Medical School and the Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary, he returned home to Kansas City to build one of the nation's most respected ophthalmology enterprises, while simultaneously serving generations of patients and trainees through the UMKC School of Medicine and University Health. Over the course of his career, Dr. Sabatez has served as chair of ophthalmology at UMKC, director of the Vision Research Center, principal investigator on numerous national clinical trials, author of an extensive body of scientific scholarship, and mentor to countless physicians and residents. Perhaps equally important is the example he has set as a citizen and champion of this institution. Dr. Sabatez established the Sabatez Endowment at UMKC. He is the largest donor in the history of our School of Medicine. Today, he serves as a leading force behind UMKC's transformational Blue and Bold campaign, a campaign that seeks to shape the future of this university and this city for generations to come. And on a personal note, my friendship with Nelson goes back much further than medicine. I won't share how much further back. He will share that with you. We were classmates and friends beginning in my sophomore year at Pembroke Country Day School. Over many years, I've watched him lead with intelligence, discipline, passion, vision, generosity, and a host of other superlatives, with an unwavering commitment to lifting others as he succeeds himself. It has been a privilege to know him, not only as a physician and a leader, but as a friend. Today, as we celebrate the accomplishments of our graduating students and welcome them formally to the profession of medicine, it's especially fitting that we hear from someone who exemplifies what a life in medicine can become, when excellence is paired with purpose, leadership, generosity, and a commitment to community. Join me in welcoming the recipient of the UMKC School of Medicine Take Wing Award and our keynote speaker, Dr. Nelson Sabatez.
Wow. Can you give me a copy of that? So, gee, that was pretty good. That's the most words he's ever said about me since we've known each other. You know, if you notice, this is embodied outside in the medical school, this Take Wing. And for many years, I'd walk by that, and I'd look at all the people that have received this award. and I was blown away at the incredible people that have graduated from this institution. We have over 4,000 graduates from this medical school. And I've always just looked at that take wing, meaning people have spread their wings and gone all over the world, all over the country. I didn't spread my wings too far. I just flew across the street. So I didn't really go that far. I've been around here an awful long time. Have known this gentleman a long time. It is 40 years ago to the day that he and I graduated medical school here. I'll always remember we used to have Saturday morning correlatives here in this very class, although it looks much nicer now. And Alex was always in the front row taking notes, being a great student. I was always in the back, kind of leaning up against the wall on a Saturday morning, taking a nap. And, you know, that was typical. Back in high school, we've known each other many years. We were all in the AP courses all together. And we took all the AP courses, and I always would position myself, you know, a little back and to the right so I can kind of see what Alex was doing. You may not remember this. We almost blew up the chemistry lab together in AP chemistry. Yeah, they were not happy with us. We were obviously science nerds, and it served us well. Then it came to the end of the year, and it came to AP tests, and one of us studied really hard and got a lot of college credit, and one of us didn't. Needless to say, my mom was not a happy camper. So he was brilliant back then, and he's brilliant now. And we are very, very lucky to have him as our dean of the medical school. I was on the search committee to get Alex. When I found out he was interested, I said, this is the man we need. This is who we need here. So I'm his biggest fan. So thank you for being here, Alex. And it meant so much for him to be giving me this award. One of the quotes that I truly, and some of you have probably seen this before, and it's, if I have seen a little farther, it is by standing on the shoulder of giants. When you look at this, it humbles you, because it makes you realize and understand where you are. A lot of people came before you and helped you. I've been very, very fortunate to have people that have helped me along the way and put me on their shoulders so that I could see farther, so that I could accomplish more. If Alex has given me a lot of latitude with what we're talking about, hence the subject of my talk, but we'll get to that. I've been blessed in my life with 4 incredible role models. Number 1, my mother and father. Many of you have known my mother and father, unbelievable people. My mom, intelligent, beautiful, very tough. She had to be with my dad. Wonderful, wonderful lady. My father, who we'll talk about a little bit more here in just a little bit, he was the quintessential physician. I grew up watching my father love being a physician, love taking care of people. I'll always remember, he used to say to me, he would say, you know, when a patient hugs me and thanks me for helping them, it dilates my coronaries. Well, he's 96, so I think it worked. We're going to talk a little bit more about my dad in just a little bit. But I came back and joined him, and I thought, you know, we'd probably work together for 6, 7 years. Well, we worked together for 25. He retired at 86, kicking and screaming. And he said to me, you're going to be just like me. You're going to work until you're in your mid-80s. And I said, heck to the no, Dad. There is no way that I'm going to work that long. But that's how committed he was to being a physician. The third person that is extremely important to me was my docent here in the medical school, Dean Novak. We all know Dr. Novak. He was the founding dean of the medical school here, and he was my docent in Blue 5. And I have never learned more from one man as I did with him. He taught us how to be physicians, caring physicians. He taught us what it was to be committed to a profession, to helping people. It was always a standard joke. You know, we would start morning rounds at 7 in the morning with Dr. Novak, and we wouldn't finish morning rounds until 2:30 at night, 2:30 in the afternoon. That was morning rounds. So we had 30 minutes to eat lunch and then start our afternoon rounds. And this is while all the other crews were getting done at 11:30, and we became Novakian. And it was a joke back then, but we all that worked with Dr. Novak wear that as a badge. We became Novakian. I still see him. He's 101 now. I haven't seen him in a little bit, but I see him at the office, and we talk and commiserate. And he was also a quintessential physician. I'm not sure if it's urban legend or not, but I was always told that he would never take time off. But when he did take a vacation, apparently there's a picture somewhere that shows him on the beach with a stack of journals next to him reading the journals. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I can see it. To this day, I still do things that Dr. Novak taught me. And I still remember so many of the things. My fourth role model was my father-in-law. My father-in-law was a brilliant, brilliant physician. He was the head of radiology, chief and chairman at Mass General, Mass Eye, one of the smartest people I've ever met. Some of you met my father-in-law. He would come and lecture a lot to our residents and to our radiology residents for years. I've never seen anybody, you could put up any x-ray and he could give you a differential of 25, 30 things and tell you about each one of them and do it with ease. Humble, smart, great man. I'm going to give you a few personal stories here. When I met my wife up in Boston, we lived right where Mass General was in Charles River Park. She lived in one building, I lived in another. And I met her and I told her I was a physician at Mass General and Mass Eye, and of course she didn't believe me. So she went home, I found this out later, she went home and called my father-in-law and said, check him out, make sure that he is who he is. So he said, yeah, he's a doctor there and whatnot. I said, okay, so she decided to go out with me. Well, I walked over, and in Boston, you walk everywhere, there's not many cars and things, it means too much of a hassle. So I go on our very first date, I go and I knock on her door at her apartment, and lo and behold, my future mother-in-law opens the door. And I was like, oh my God, you know, you're not used to meeting somebody's parents like right off the bat. But her mother, gracious, beautiful, wonderful woman, just like my wife, opened the door and welcomed me and was fantastic. And my father-in-law, tough German guy, was sitting on this couch like this, looking at me. He scared the hell out of me. And he was just looking at me like this, and I was going, uh-oh. I found out later that was his normal stance, you know. That's just who he was, like that. And so I met her parents right off the bat. And to me, family is huge. And I loved that. That was great. But my wife and I were going to walk somewhere, and lo and behold, here I am at 29, going out on a first date with my wife, and my future father and mother-in-law drive us. I felt like I was back in high school, or before high school. That was the beginning, and my beautiful wife is right there. My father-in-law was a wonderful, wonderful guy. Those four people kind of set the stage for, helped me be who I am. Not to mention I've got friends here and my beautiful family. But I've been very, very lucky to stand on the shoulders of others so that I could see farther. My father started the Department of Ophthalmology here. It was the old section of ophthalmology, and this is pictures of the old General Hospital in the basement. And that's where ophthalmology started here. This was before the med school, before Truman Medical Center, and that's where it started. And then we moved to, you guys know this building, it's right on 23rd Street, and this was the Eye Foundation, and it was the Department of Ophthalmology. And I'm working now on my 35th residency class. 15 as residency director, 20 as chairman. And it has gone very, very quickly. I've been around so long that I am now training the children of my first residents. I guess that makes me like a grand chairman or something, I don't know. But it's something that I've truly loved to do, which is the teaching part. You all know this building. We opened this up about 10 years ago, and ophthalmology was the anchor of this building, and that's where the name University Health came about. We were not going to go into a building that had the regular Truman Medical Center logo. So we wanted to come up with a name that really embodied what our academic medical center was. And initially, it was going to be UMKC Health. That was a name that I came up with. In other words, to tie in our academic institution, UMKC with Truman Medical Center, and be the beginning. Well, University of Missouri and Columbia didn't like the idea, so anyway, it came down to University Health. But you'll notice the same colors as UMKC, the same logo, things like that. And that was the beginning of University Health, the name University Health. And I'm very proud of that building. I'm proud of what it's become, and I'm proud of what University Health has become under the unbelievable leadership of Charlie Fields. But that's where the name of University Health first started. And this will kind of tell you when we opened up, it was when the Royals won the championship 10 years ago. So I always love that picture. I think it's going to be a while before the Royals do it again. But how about exciting, the Royal Stadium going up over here? I mean, how exciting is that? We've always been in the hub of activity, but now we really are going to be. Over the last 40 years, medicine has changed dramatically. Healthcare has changed dramatically. We've all kind of lived through it and seen it. I've got a bunch of, I guess it's the OCD in me. I'm multitasking, and I like to do a lot of things. One of the things that I obviously have done a lot of is research, clinical trials. And I was going to bore you with some clinical trial data. And I was going to bore you with some of our basic science research, which our vice chairman right here of research, Peter Coolin, who is the Sabates Endowed Chair of Vision Research from Missouri. Fantastic research. That guy has been with me 15 years. The research he is doing is second to none. And I will tell you, he is a tremendous mentor for our medical students here. Thank you, Peter.
Sorry to tell you it's 17 years.
Is it 17? Wow, you're getting old, Peter. So I wasn't going to bore you with any of that, but one of the things I was going to tell you a little bit about academic education and whatnot. One of the things that I always have been very interested in is the business of medicine, practice management. What is it to be a physician and a doctor? Doctors, we go through medical school and residency, don't know anything about medicine. I mean, about business. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. We're never taught. Never taught. We're too dumb. I always get a friend of mine who was an MBA said, "You're just a doctor. You go be a doctor. You don't know anything about business." Well, he was right. He was right, but why shouldn't we? So I started a practice management lecture series 25 years ago that I teach at my department and all my residents. And I'll always remember the day that I went to the Association for University Professors in Ophthalmology, and I presented, and these are all the professors and residency directors of all the programs. And I said, "This is what I'm doing." And they said, "What? Why are you wasting your time teaching residents about business?" They were just clueless. Because as physicians, we're not supposed to talk about money. We're not supposed to talk about how much things cost. Even to this day, when a patient asks me, "How much does something cost?" I still am uncomfortable. It's just not in our DNA. That's not why we went into medicine. But you kind of have to. You have to know the business side of medicine. So, the business of medicine. This is what I tell my residents. What should I know? And they better be streaming right there. They better be listening to this right now at the department. Some of the topics that we go through in our oh, that's right, a business. What is a business? Revenue minus expenses gives you net income, bottom line. So if you're in the black, you're doing good. If you're in the red, you got to do something. You got to change something. You either got to increase your revenue, decrease your expenses. Except, of course, if you're the federal government. Doesn't matter if you're in the red, deeply in the red, you just print money. None of us have that luxury. So some of the topics that I go through with practice management are revenue cycle management. How do you get your money? Contracting, practice opportunities, the cost of starting a practice. They're always shocked at, and we'll go through, how much money do you have to borrow? When I tell them, listen, it's a sphincter tightener. The first day you go into a bank and you go, I gotta borrow what? That is sacrifice. Practice opportunities, the cost, different practice models. What's the role of private equity? And we're going to go through that. Marketing, challenges of running a practice, looking for jobs, investing opportunities, malpractice, organizational structure. You'd be surprised how many businesses that we all know have no structure whatsoever. Nobody knows what anybody else is doing. Challenges of human resources. Oh, the bane of any business. People. What are the different practice opportunities? Academics, private practice, solo, group, medical, specialty, hybrid model, HMO, Veterans Administration, industry, locum tenens. So there's a lot of different subjects that we go through with the residents, and we talk about accounts receivable, accounts management. What does all this mean? Well, in a medical business, medical practice, the revenue is us. We're not making anything. We're not making widgets or anything. We are the widgets. So for anything to happen, we got to be there. That's stressful. That's stressful. So if you're not there, revenue doesn't happen, but guess what? The expenses are still there. The fixed cost, the variable cost, the cost of technology, et cetera. The cost of your staff, that's still there. And so what I try to do is at least get them to understand what business is. Now, I will tell you, Alex and I have spoken a lot about this, and I know he's in the process of getting a business curriculum for the medical school, which is a great idea. We need to know what's happening out there because healthcare is changing, not for the better on the financial side. We're going to get to that. It's no longer the practice of medicine, it's the business of medicine. When did this happen? How did we get into the situation that we're in? We're going to go back. And this is very rudimentary, very 10,000-foot view, but just so we can kind of be brought up to speed. The history of health insurance. In 1929, there was a prepaid hospital plan at Baylor University where 1,300 Dallas teachers paid 50 cents a month for 21 days of hospital care. And that was a hospital service plan. And that's around the time that the American Hospital Association, which later became Blue Cross, came about. In the early 1940s, the AMA had prepaid medical plans, and that became the physician services that kind of dovetailed in with the hospital services. In the 40s and 50s, that's when employer-based insurance benefits came about. Businesses needed a benefit to give to their employees. So therefore, employee benefit plan for insurance. That's when it started to come about. This is when things get dicey. See, because before this, healthcare, it was not supposed to cost much. So yes, you got a benefit from your employer, but it wasn't supposed to be that much. 1965, the Medicare and Medicaid Act was passed. At that time, 70% of people had private insurance, but private insurance for covering your health care, it wasn't much, because health care didn't cost that much. Leave it to the government to enact a well-meaning plan without any checks and balances, without anybody checking what's going on. My father used to tell me that when Medicare came about, his friends used to call him and say, Felix, charge whatever you want. The government will pay for it. Gee, what could go wrong? And then in the 1960s and 70s, the start of commercial health insurance plans. In the late 70s, early 80s, this is when things start really happening, deregulation and relaxed antitrust laws. And there was something, well, let me go back, something called ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which allowed employers to self-insure. So you get this explosion of managed care plans in the 1980s. The financial sharks saw blood in the water. And all of a sudden, pharmaceutical companies, device companies knew that they could charge Medicare for whatever and they get paid. Charge insurance companies, they got paid. So all of a sudden, healthcare was not the practice of medicine anymore. It became the business of medicine. Medicare, the original, was Part A for inpatient hospital, Part B was medical. And again, well-meaning, just like Social Security, well-meaning plan. But it was never meant to be the sole retirement source for people. That is what it's become. Medicare was never supposed to be the behemoth that it has evolved into. But it has, because there was no checks and balances. Part C, Medicare Advantage, private insurers started to step in because they saw an ability to make money from Medicare. And then you had the subsidized prescription coverage that started in 2006. So managed care became health management organizations, maintenance organizations, PPOs, point of service, and all of them were different health plans. And every HMO, let's say for Blue Cross, had 3 or 4 different types and 3 or 4 different types of deductibles. So all of a sudden, you're a physician office. You need to hire more and more and more people to try to figure out what the heck is all this. And there is a major insurer in this country that is well known for just denying claims for no reason. Because they know most physicians don't have the resources to bill it again. And not coincidentally, a lot of this happens right before their quarterly financial report. Not being cynical, this is fact. This is fact. There was something called disease-related groups. It's almost immediately, once this explosion in the 80s happened, we knew we had a problem. Healthcare expenses were going through the roof. So there was something that came about, and you may remember this, Alex, in school, disease-related groups, DRGs. The idea was if somebody was admitted, Michelle, you remember that? When somebody was admitted to the hospital, and let's say they had congestive heart failure, well, Medicare and insurance company would pay X amount of money to take care of that patient, no matter how long they were in the hospital. So in other words, passing the risk on to the physician in the hospital. That didn't last too long, but it morphed into a bunch of other things. Capitation. It was a time when insurance companies would pay you per member per month. So they would pay you, let's say, $10. You had 10,000 Medicare members. They would pay you $10 per member per month. So $20,000 a month to take care of whatever problem happened with that patient. Taking the risk, putting it squarely on the physician. My wife and I actually started a company back then in healthcare. It was called Physician Vision Providers, PVP, in the mid to late 90s, and it went into the mid 2000s. Believe it or not, Kansas City was a hotbed for this. And we got a lot of contracts from Blue Cross, from Health Net, from Prudential to manage eye care. At one time, we had, I think, 200,000 commercial lives and 40,000 Medicare lives. And we proved that with proper oversight, you could give great health care with the right price. Capitation went away. But we also had that experience. Physician practice management companies, PPMCs, again, started in the 90s. And it is a forerunner of an MSO, what we have now, medical service organizations. And the idea there was you sell your practice to a PPMC for stock, on the assumption that that company will eventually sell in the stock market and you'll make millions. Well, it never happened. That went away. So where are we now? We have traditional indemnity fee for service. You don't see that You have HMO, PPO, point of service, high deductible health plans, health savings accounts, and all this is very fluid. So you can ask, if you are a physician in independent practice or a group, you see all of the different things that you have to deal with just to get the revenue, to pay your expenses, to get your bottom line. We go through this a lot with my residents. It's not fun, it's not sexy, it's not operation, but you gotta know. How about healthcare expenditures? 1970, there was $74.1 billion of healthcare expense in the United States, 6.9% of GDP, gross domestic product. In 2000, 1.4 trillion. It was 13% of GDP. In 2024, $5.3 trillion, 18% of GDP. In the not too distant future, 20%, one out of every $5 developed in our economy or generated in our economy is going to go to healthcare. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Hospitals are a third of that. Physicians and other providers are 20% of that, only 20%. Pharmaceuticals, which we're going to talk about here in just a second, 10%. The rest goes to nursing homes, hospice, public health administration. I'm just going to give you one example, and this is just from my neck of the woods in ophthalmology. An ASC is an ambulatory surgery center. HOPD, hospital outpatient department. They are surgery centers. Identical. Exactly the same equipment, same everything. One is affiliated with a hospital, one is independent. A blepharoplasty, an eye lift. In an ASC, the facility fee is $986. In an HOPD, double. A capsulotomy, which takes literally 1 minute laser. In an ASC, $295, $549. Anyway, you can see what I'm trying to show you here. The exact same procedure is double in an HOPD. Why? How did that ever come about? Now, if a hospital administrator was here, not Charlie, Charlie's fantastic, but they would say, well, it costs more to do things in a hospital. Why? Why? Why are we not doing more of our stuff in ASCs if it can save 50%? Anyway, just questions. Drug pricing, we all know this. U.S. drug pricing, 256% higher compared to 32 other countries. And I think that number's higher than that. Believe it or not, up until 2022, a pharmaceutical company, the government could not negotiate prices. Inflation Reduction Act was the first mechanism given to Medicare to negotiate prices. So, a company comes up with an FDA-approved drug, they go to Medicare and say, I'm going to charge $1,000 a pill. Okay. But that pill in Europe is $300, $200. Why? We're addressing at least some of the major medications now. This Inflation Reduction Act is helpful. But I'll give you an example in ophthalmology. Some of the clinical trials, we've been in clinical trials on all of these injections, and you see them marketed on TV all the time. It sickens me. But for 0.05 mLs, not 0.5, 0.05, $2,000. So we inject in the eye, $2,000. That same medication in Europe is $300. So, like the United States is prone to be, we've been underwriting so many things for decades, and this is another example of that. That has got to be addressed. Waste. We all know this also. And every report that I've read over the years says anywhere from 10 to 25%. I threw in the 25 because it looks better. It gets my point across. But 25% of our healthcare dollars are considered wasteful. 266 billion administrative waste. Healthcare complexity. What does that mean? Our system is so darn complex. The insurance plans, the different plans within insurance plans, and all of the hoops you have to jump through. The number of FTEs, non-revenue generating FTEs that you have to have just to kind of fix it or figure it out. Operational waste, this is part of the pricing that we talked about. The number I read, 84 billion in fraud and waste, I think the number is higher than that. What are the growing influences that we're dealing with in healthcare now? Financial markets, commercial and investment banks, private equity, venture capital, investors. Why? You have to ask yourself, why so many people are interested in healthcare? Why did all of these financial institutions now become interested, not now, but in the 80s? Because there was a steady flow of public financing, reliable and attractive revenue stream. That's pretty good. If you know that there's going to be a public stream of money, let's dive in. Let me get my piece of it. Private equity, I'm just going to give you just a few words on that. Over the past 10 years, 8,000 transactions totaling $1 trillion have occurred. They buy hospitals, nursing homes, physician practices, dialysis clinics, hospice operators. The idea is they roll up a bunch of us, squeeze out whatever little profit there is, and then sell it all. I'm not against private equity, but you need to know, you need to go into it eyes wide open and know what you're dealing with. They're in existence for one reason and one reason only, to make money for their investors. I'm not saying that's bad at all, but you have to understand that's what you're dealing with. In ophthalmology alone, there are 30 PE firms. It's now down to about 20 because a couple of them have figured out there's not that much gravy. They've gone bankrupt, and there's been mergers and acquisitions and things like that. But why sell? If you're a physician, if you're a healthcare group, why sell? Well, to survive increasing local competition and integration, you get access, theoretically, access to capital and infrastructure. That may be what they promise you. Easier administrative burden. We've kind of gone through how difficult it is to practice. Potential exit strategy. It all depends on what stage your business is in, your practice, your healthcare facility, etc. Hospital systems, insurance companies, pharmaceutical firms are all behaving like financial firms now. Healthcare entities now need to generate growth. Their bottom line needs to be black, not red. Conversely, patients are facing higher costs, out of pocket, and rising premiums. In conclusion of this part, healthcare financial transformation has been the corporatization, horizontal and vertical integration. Hospital groups, hospital systems are a big example of this. The idea is if you merge or you integrate vertically and horizontally, there's economies of scale and you save money. I haven't seen it work yet. All I see is a bunch of new buildings and new brick and mortar that is doing what? Not cynical, just my observation. Privatization, private insurance groups. The financialization of healthcare, basically there are new forms of financial ownership and control of U.S. healthcare. It is now at the demand of financial markets. Let's come back around to physicians. There's approximately 850 to 900,000 practicing physicians in the country. These are sobering numbers. 22% of our physicians are over 65, 30% are over 60. 52% of our practicing physicians are within 5 to 10 years of retirement. And I guarantee you those 52% are doing 70 to 75% of the work. I'm not kidding you. Another sobering number, 17% under the age of 40. 17%. An FTE of somebody under 40 is not equivalent to an FTE of somebody over 60. I'll leave it at that. The average age of physicians in 2025, 54.4. Average age of the workforce, 41.8. We've gone through everything, all the changes that have been happening in healthcare. Well, that has pushed physicians to be employed. 80% of physicians are employed, 56% in health systems, 24% in corporate entities. Only 1 in 5 physicians now are shareholders or own their practice. Can it be done? Absolutely, it can be done. But you have to be committed. You have to be willing. It's not a 30-hour week, 40-hour work week. It's a 50, 60, 70-hour work week because you're a practicing physician and you're running a business. It can be done, but you gotta want it. We all know about the physician shortage. Patients over the age of 65 are to increase by 42% by 2030. This is ophthalmology. Physician payment under Medicare decreased 33% from 2001 to 2025 for ophthalmic surgery, especially cataract surgery. Not surprisingly, payments to hospitals, Medicare Advantage plans, drug companies, nursing homes have all risen. Physicians are the only group consistently seeing cuts. That's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. Physician challenges, and there are many. Physicians are now providers. Physicians are now looped into every healthcare, anybody that delivers any healthcare, any paraprofessional, we're all providers now. In the eyes of the insurance plans, Medicare, we're all providers. You kind of go through 5, 10, 15 years of training. You're not a physician anymore, you're a provider. Physicians have to navigate an ever-changing healthcare landscape, decreasing reimbursements. You take, let's say, a hardware store, and the cost of a hammer goes up $10. Well, whoever owns that is going to pass that $10 on to their customers. Not physician groups. We cannot do that. We cannot balance bill patients. So whatever increase there occurs, we have to absorb that. So what happens? How do you absorb that? Well, you see more patients, you spend less time with patients, you try to bring in elective procedures, but you cannot balance bill a patient. Increasing expenses, increasing regulations, HR challenges, I already touched upon that, clinical changes in treatment. I've said a lot of negative stuff. This is just the reality of healthcare. It is what it is. We will survive. I love this quote, and this is from Winston Churchill. The pessimist always sees challenges in every opportunity, but the optimist always sees opportunity in every challenge. I'm the forever optimist. No matter what happens, we'll survive. Healthcare will survive. Physicians will survive. We got a lot of challenges right now. I wish I had answers. I flip back on a slide deck that I talked about business 20 years ago and what the future was going to happen. Boy, was I wrong. So don't ask me what I think is going to happen because I don't have any idea. But I do know we'll survive. Why? Artificial intelligence. This is all the rage. And just like a lot of technologies that have happened over the years, what you don't know, you're scared of. Artificial intelligence is good when used properly. It can be used in diagnostics, data analysis, precision medicine, patient triage, clinical decision support, medical imaging. In radiology, AI is doing a lot of work. Predictive analysis, virtual assistants. AI is advancing rapidly across healthcare, but scale without trust can weaken clinical judgment rather than strengthen it. What do physicians bring to the table? Empathy, accountability, trust. Something that we kind of lose, the physical contact, the one-on-one. AI will never be able to do that. Well, I never say never. They'll have some you know, wonderful robot that looks great, that'll just sit there and hug you or whatever it's gonna be. Who knows? Who knows? But it's exciting. You can take that technology and work with it. It can make you more efficient. And I guarantee you, we are in a shortage. Try now to get into a specialist. 4, 5, 6 months. It's gonna get worse. And those specialists wanna work shorter hours. Telemedicine. I think that there is a place for telemedicine. Remote clinical services for diagnosing and treating patients, virtual doctor visit, remote patient monitoring, using wearable devices, mental health consultations. Dr. Norbash is very, very interested in the wearables and bioinformatics and that aspect, which, by the way, I'm sure you all see the building out there. Very proud of the healthcare delivery and innovation building. We worked hard to get that built. That is the largest project in UMKC history, and it's a med school and the dental school, and we should be proud of that building, and we're going to do a lot of great things there. My last thing is I'm going to tell you another thing that I'm working on, and again, it has to do with the future of medicine. I bet you didn't know, because I didn't know, medical knowledge doubles every 73 days. Just 15 years ago, it was every 3.5 years. This project that I'm working on, I've been a co-founder of a company that we started about 7 years ago. And it's dealing with just this. And critical medical information remains siloed. So how do we all communicate? How do we all see? There's our journals, there's our different societies, but how does a radiologist know what's going on in ophthalmology or an orthopedic or OB-GYN? Because you want to, and a lot of times your patients have questions. We've come up with a web-based app that's called MedProdigy, and it is launching in the next week or two, next month or two. And what it is a central repository for both the latest and most valuable peer-reviewed content fully contextualized. We've got a medical board of 12 specialists, and this is all across all medicine, 26 specialties. There's 12 of us on the National Advisory Board, from cardiologists to ophthalmologists to everything. And instant publishing and peer-reviewed. All medical conditions and treatment options will be contextualized to include risks, advantages, disadvantages. There's an appointed faculty. The application is designed to assist physicians in achieving full medical legal compliance. Believe it or not, there's no standard of care for medicine. This will be that repository. It's going to be a professional and social network. Robust discussion capable of complex content sharing. One single app to replace the long list of multiple platform physicians are currently forced to bounce between. This is active. This is AI curated, physician directed. We've already got about 5 major health systems around the country, 2 medical schools, and a bunch of physicians ready to sign on. This will be, hopefully, the area of medical information. Plus, we've got the pharmaceutical and medical device companies are also going to be able to publish in real time their latest and greatest information about any devices, any medications. It'll be side by side. So let's say you are an orthopedic surgeon and you want to know what's the latest on knee replacement. You go to MedProdigy, you look it up, and side by side will be all the peer-reviewed articles with all the pharmaceutical and latest device company information in their clinical trials, so you can make an informed decision. And the medical legal aspect of this is that if you ever get sued, you can say, listen, I looked at all of the up-to-date, state-of-the-art information out there on MedProdigy. An attorney is going to be that much less likely to go after you if you can prove, and MedProdigy monitors all of that for every physician. So that's something else that I'm working on. So I don't want to leave you with the negative. Yes, there are challenges. No question. No question. What can we do as physicians, as people in healthcare? We adjust. We evolve. Alex and I were talking about lunch at how things have changed so much in 40 years. And we innovate. We think outside the box. We use AI. We use telemedicine. We use apps like MedProdigy. Something that makes us innovate and move forward and look to the future, because it's a very bright future. Physicians will always be needed. I was just telling the medical students that I was having lunch, never forget why you went into medicine. You went into medicine, hopefully, to help people and to make a difference. That's why you go into medicine, and we'll always be able to do that as physicians. The financial stuff, yeah, it's irritating, sure. But that's why we do what we do. Anyway, I went a little bit longer. I threw a lot of stuff at you. I got a lot of stuff going on in my mind. But anyway, I thank you, Alex, for this tremendous honor. I am very humbled by this honor, and I thank you all for listening to me for a whole hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sabates. That was spectacular. We have some time for some questions from the audience. Does anybody? Yes.
Okay, one of the biggest things that I've seen that's changed the business of medicine is the electronic health record, both for good and for bad. Can you give me your perspective on how that has really changed how we do medicine?
Great question. The idea, again, the government has a lot of great ideas, well-meaning, but they don't put any guardrails. They don't really follow through on it. When the idea of electronic medical records came about, it was fantastic. But the problem is you have all of these different platforms out there, none of them talk to each other. So I could have an electronic medical record in my office. Alex could have one in his. And theoretically, they all should be able to talk. That was going to be ultimately the advantage to electronic medical records, that it would be portable, that anybody could log on your electronic medical records. That hasn't happened. We're going to get there. We're going to get there because there were so many platforms for EMR that came out that every practice had something different. It makes a whole lot more sense. It's actually nice because I remember the transition from paper charts to EMR, actually being able to read what my colleague was doing instead of looking at a bunch of chicken scratch and trying to decipher, so it's no question it was an advancement. Now, it also was a huge transformation in that it slowed you down. And the initial complaints that many physicians had was that I'm spending all my time here looking at the screen and not a lot of time with my patient. We've gotten better. I think AI, virtual assistants, are already helping with that. So just like everything, it's in evolution. It's something that has to happen. I'm hoping that the different EMR platforms will start talking together. And so that a patient can be seen here in our institution and take their electronic medical records on a thumb drive or whatever and go to California and they plug it in and boom, it's there. That's going to make us more efficient. That's going to be better quality of care for the patient. So we're still, to be honest, in not the infancy, but maybe the adolescence of EMR. And I think over the next 10, 20 years, as we figure out all of these things, it's going to continue to make a big difference. Yeah, you're welcome.
Great talk. I actually learned quite a bit.
Wait a sec. My wife learned something from me. I think we need to stop and Jenny's right there.
I just have a question because I always hear you talking about the political aspect of medicine and how the young generation or doctors in general should try to get more involved politically to try to change some of these laws and take a more active role in trying to change the government, the medical prices. I mean, what piece of advice do you have politically for that?
You got another hour? Something that I try to really preach to my staff and my residents is get involved. Things just don't happen. They happen to you if you don't get involved. A lot of our political decisions, a lot of our healthcare decisions are made at our State House, Jefferson City. For any of you that have done advocacy and dealt with our state reps and state senators, oh my God. I mean, a lot of them are well-meaning, but a lot of them don't know anything about anything. We need to educate them, especially on healthcare. And it starts with medical students. It starts with residents and advocacy and getting to the State House. And we send our residents to the National Academy Day for Academy of Ophthalmology so that you get used to dealing with them. I've been to Washington several times and met with a bunch of the senators there that are medically inclined. And thankfully, we do have some physicians that are on the national level and understand. But all these problems that we're talking about, they're Herculean. Herculean. I'm not sure we'll ever solve it. First of all, we got to get our government to work together. Geez, wouldn't that be something great? You know, and kind of like quit worrying about the far left, far right. Let's get in the middle and figure this stuff out. Anyway, I preach. But to your point, medical students, residents, they need to work locally in our state houses, understand the process, and get involved. I'm an old guy. I'm not the one that's going to be making all the changes. And I tell my residents, I say, listen, all these changes that are happening, they're going to affect you, not me. Get involved. Because what's going to happen is 5, 10 years down the road, something's going to happen. It's like, what happened? You didn't get involved. You didn't raise your voice and complain or give anything else, and it happened to you. So anyway, that's something, again, it's one of the problems that I have right now with a lot of our younger physicians is they won't do anything if they're not paid. I mean, it just blows my mind. Never did anybody come up to me and ask my help for something or go to the State House or do this. Sure. Now the response is, how much are you going to pay me? All of you that are dealing with it. Yeah. And this generation needs to get their act together because they're going to get their butts handed to them because they're not getting involved, they're not getting active, and bad things are going to come their way. So anyway, I didn't mean to digress. I look at Michelle. Michelle and I go back so many years, and she's nodding her head because we've dealt with this. And young people need to get involved. So anyway.
We have time for one final question.
Hi. Quick question. How would you suggest adjusting, evolving, innovating to better address the crisis in the rural communities? I mean, most of the physicians, as you stated, are older, and if you look at rural communities, most of their family practice physicians are older, and the young people are not going to rural communities. So short of doing everything, AI in rural communities, what would you suggest encouraging our students to practice there?
That is a fantastic question. I will tell you, UMKC is doing their part. Our medical school is doing our part. We've got our medical school in St. Joseph that is totally trying to answer that question. But we're just one. I think it's incumbent on our medical educators, our medical schools around the country to do exactly what UMKC has done here. This medical school is so far ahead of the game in so many different ways. And they need to take the lead from what we have done here and establish a medical school that is basically rural guided. Now, that's one step. Unfortunately, step two is money. There are some great people that are motivated by altruism and doing what is right. But the majority, how much you gonna pay me? So unfortunately, these rural communities are gonna have to come up with some resources, maybe tied into a university, maybe tied into a healthcare system. That, okay, healthcare system, you're not gonna get a lot of money here, but it's the right thing to do. Let's establish something here in whatever small town, and it's the right thing to do. So I wish I had answers. I think about that all the time. I talk to my residents about where they're going. Some are going to smaller communities, but I think other medical schools around the country need to take the lead of what UMKC has done on a multitude of different fronts. And we've got the dean here to show us the way.
So please join me again in thanking Dr. Sabates for his contribution. The hooding ceremony will be tonight, 4 p.m. Sweeney, if you can make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that appropriate?